Good evening. Please take a seat.
So you just drop it in there. You feel like you're an official and I get challenged. And I've got it. Are you working down? I have it. It's not mine. Is that your pen? So I got it. I'll say 10 minutes. What this time? Is that all we can get up, Mark.
Absolutely. And your salary's on the 19th. That juices that. What's the year?
Good evening, councillors. Have you scored? Any apologies?
Mr Mayor, can I give apologies from Councillor Brian Hartley, who is on holiday this week and didn't really want to come back for this extraordinary meeting.
Howard?
So can I give my Councillor David and Sarah Goldberg who are attending the parish council meeting, and Councillor Butterworth, who is actually in town as well.
Thank you. And we've got apologies from Councillor Marian Atkinson as well from before. Anyone else? Any declarations of interest? Item 3, local council elections 2026.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. My view is that council elections must go ahead in May. It's a denial of democracy if they are cancelled. Accountability is key, and we should be answerable to voters. Cancellation undermines the legitimacy of local decision taking. Councillors elected in 2022, such as myself, Councillor Salter, various other people around the room, would serve a 6-year term if elections are cancelled next year. And that's longer than a UK Parliament, and in other parts of the country, councillors would, if their elections are cancelled, councillors would be serving for a 7-year term. And that really is a denial of democracy. And councils mustn't fall into the trap that's been set for us. There's a clear conflict of interest between being accountable and being answerable to electors and sitting comfortably on seats that we have no longer earned. Local government reorganisation is no excuse to cancel elections. The Electoral Commission says there are no exceptional circumstances at play. In this council, there is no real capacity concern. There is no real overlap between the work of running elections and local government reorganisation, and there is no real reason to cancel. And Pendle Council is multitasking all the time. You know, it's not just doing one thing, it's doing lots and lots of different things. Those arguing that money could be better spent on thin ice it's a slippery slope once you start to put a price on democracy. And that's more about face saving rather than money saving. We need to take residents' views into account. And over the past few weeks, I've asked residents what they thought about this. A recurrent theme is no taxation without representation. People say that it's a corrosion of confidence. They stress the value of voting. Don't cancel democracy. Don't take away people's choice. The principle of voting is paramount. In May, voters should vote on our record, vote on our plans, vote on care home closures, and they should vote on 101 different issues. Above all, people must be allowed to vote. We should not deny them democracy. And I propose, Mr. Mayor, that we do, as a council, reject the government's invitation to cancel elections, not postpone, but cancel elections in 2026. And we delegate consent to the Chief Executive and myself to draft the precise terms of that letter that we send back to them. And hopefully on the basis of the points that I just set out. So, Mr. Mayor, I move.
Seconder?
Mr. Mayor, I mean, I could be self-serving and say I want by election this year for 1 year. I could be self-serving and say I'd rather not see an election next year and have an extra 2 years. But I believe in democracy, and I believe that the residents have that right to vote when that situation arises. So I'm very much in agreement with our leader, and I will second this amendment, second this proposal that the elections go ahead.
Councillor Ash?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to support this too. And actually, our group are quite mixed in our opinions on whether the election should go ahead. And that's one of the joys of democracy,
yes,
that we have choice. And so within our group, there have been mixed opinions and mixed debates about this for the past few weeks and about which way we were likely to vote, and our group are not whipped, and they will make their choice as and when we come to make that vote at that time. Now, in terms of my personal opinion on the way that we vote, I believe that democracy stands. We should be allowed to make our choices if and when, given the processes that are set out. It's no secret that our group have actually always favoured an all-out election system, where we have an all-out election every 4 years. We feel that that gives council stability, it gives you accountability, and it cuts costs too. Now, my big reservation about the elections going ahead is the cost. Over £100,000 or around about £100,000 to run the elections. Yes, indeed, Leader, I believe that that money could be spent better. But this is the system that we have here. This is the system that was democratically proposed, and it is one that we use at Pendle Council to work in thirds. Now, I would prefer that we moved to an all-out election system, and we've tried to do that in the past. So we are using the system that has been put out before us, and we are using the system that the general public expect to use to make and cast their votes to decide on who represents them for a term of 12 months, up to years, however long that should be. Now, that brings us on to a whole other point around the LGR and the proposals that we've got coming forward. We still don't know. We're in a no man's land. We really don't know what we're coming up against in the future. And we would love to know. We need to know, because then we can make some proper decisions about the future of Pendle, and that's the reason we're all in this room this evening, because we want to make proper decisions informed on proper information for the people of Pendle. So we need to because in the absence and that chasm that we have of misinformation or missing information, we need to carry on as we are and get people represented around these tables and carry on making the best we can of Pendle for its people.
Well, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I'll start off by just picking up on point of council with answers to the voters. He's 110% correct. We do answer to the voters, and I answer to my voters for the last 26 years in Rugby, and they've thankfully returned me back to this chamber time after time. But the fact is, Mr Mayor, that this is the LGR is going to be the biggest change to not only to this council, forget the council for a minute, will be the biggest change to us as Pendle residents since 1974. And out of the 10 colleagues that are up for election in May, most of them are very talented and able people. And I'll highlight Councillor Witt, for example, Councillor Ruby Anwar, Councillor Sajjad Ahmed, Councillor Salter as well. And the risk is that if the elections go ahead in Pendle on the whatever date it is in May, and all of these 10 capable, talented people are taken out by the voters and they vote for somebody else, the risk, I believe, and it's a serious risk to the future of Pendle, is that we're going into negotiations with government over the next year or so, and Ash is right that whether it's a year or 2 years, we don't know at the moment. But the fact is that we as a council could be hindered if we haven't got the right people representing the people of Pendle in any negotiations. And I think it would be remiss of us that we go in blindfolded, or some of us go in blindfolded into the election, and the government then force something onto us in July of us where we're not in a position to negotiate properly, and the people will never forgive us for decades to come. And some people have argued in this chamber that what happened in 1974, for example, was wrong. And Councillor Witt, for example, has been a strong advocate of that. That Barlow, for example, would have wanted to stay in Yorkshire, but they were granted the blessing of coming into Lancashire in 74. And the risk we've got, for example, if local government reorganisation goes ahead, is that Pendle could be lumped in with not just within the East Lancashire Council or a Birkendale or a Berlin Pendle, but we could be forced into what the Reformed County Council have proposed, is one big super council. We've always argued we've been out on a limb here in Pendle because we're at the far end of the county, and the risk, I believe, is a genuine risk that if local government reorganisation goes ahead, we will not have those people around the table to argue on our behalf. So, Mr Mayor, I believe that we should, and sorry, one last point I make, our group is not scared of the election because we fought the last 2 or 3 elections as an independent group, and we've held our seats and in fact gained some seats as well. And the county council elections this year, for example, proved that people vote for the person, not the party. So whilst we totally fundamentally disagree with what Keir Starmer and the Labour government are doing, I think in this instance it would make sense for the elections to be postponed. Well, we would ask that the government consider postponing the elections in Pendle so we can focus both as elected members and senior officers of the council on LGR and get the best deal for Pendle residents. Well, I will not be supporting the motion. If you want me to move an amendment, I'm just looking at procedure to Dean or Howard. So my amendment would be that we delegate consent to the leader and the chief executive to write to the government that Pendle wishes to request postponement of the elections for May 2026.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I'll have to second the Councillor Iqbal's proposal. Yeah. Mr Mayor, local government reorganisation is a complex and far-reaching process. It involves not simply changing structures but reshaping how local services are funded and delivered. And if the government approves LGR later this year, an overriding priority throughout this transition is to maintain stability and to ensure our residents to continue to receive reliable, quality and effective services. One of the principal challenges is establishing new governance and legal arrangements, and this includes defining decision-making structures, clarifying responsibilities, our identity, and ensuring that there are no gaps or overlaps in accountability as existing authorities transition to new bodies. Mr Mayor, our workforce is central to the success of this process. Aligning organisational structures, roles and employment terms requires extensive planning and consultation. At the same time, we must retain key skills and expertise and support staff through a period of change. The scale and pace of LGR places considerable demands on programme management. It is time-consuming and resource-intensive. Clear governance, realistic timescales and effective risk management are essential to delivering a smooth and successful transition. Mr Mayor, taking together these challenges that demonstrate why careful preparation is necessary and why stability during the LGR period is so important. And later this month, a report is coming to the Executive Committee with some of the internal organisational changes to help with LGR while still focused on delivering our council plan. And I think this report acknowledges, which I hope the also acknowledges, that this report it kind of addresses the challenges that's facing our council, the resources that are required to deliver and prepare us, and gives us like a head start when the changes do, if LGR is approved and the changes come to happen. And by exploring the local elections this year, we will address the issues thoroughly and we can ensure that the new system of local government is well prepared, resilient and capable of serving our communities effectively into the future, putting Pendle residents and Pendle council staff first.
Any more speakers on the amendment? We'll go to the vote. Councillor Stone.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. On the amendment. Mr. Mayor, I've listened carefully to all of the comments that have been made this evening. And we've heard a lot of comments around the price of democracy or denial of democracy or undermining democracy. Indeed, Councillor Bell even said, I believe in democracy. Let me tell you, Councillor Bell, I'm sure that all of us in this room believe in democracy. However we vote tonight, this is not about democracy. This is about whether we hold an election next year. And I was wondering whether some councillors, Councillor Wibb, Councillor Bell, had been reading a book which was published in 1942 by the American political scientist Joseph Schumpeter. Schumpeter essentially outlined what became the basis of Western democratic thinking. It essentially prioritised elections as a form. Elections were the key principle of democracy. And if you had elections, you were a democracy. And in subsequent years, we've seen that this process has been abused by other states. Other states hold sham elections. We don't call them democracies. Indeed, we ourselves have an upper chamber in the House of Lords where for 300 years not one single vote has ever been cast for a member of the House of Lords. Mr. Mayor, the problem with sham elections, or the problem with focusing overly on elections, is that democracy has to have a result. It has to have a point. And I don't know who Councillor Wibb's been talking to, but I can tell Councillor Wibb that when I knock on doors, I hear a lot of estranged, disillusioned voters. And not a single one of those voters has ever said, I don't have enough elections. I don't go to the polls more. I go to the polls every year in Pendle. We have elections every year, Mr. Mayor. And not one person says, I wish they were every 6 months. What they say is, I have elections, nothing changes. There's no point in me voting because nothing changes. And when we apply this to the context of Pendle, we are talking here about an election to elect councillors to a 1-year term or a 2-year term maximum to a council which we know will be abolished, and in its interim 1-year or 2-year period it will have severely circumscribed decision-making powers. Now, if we are saying to voters, we want to spend £100,000 of your money to hold elections, we don't need to have to a council which is going to cease to exist and will have very limited decision-making powers. That to me sounds like a recipe not for encouraging and invigorating democracy, but for further disillusioning and disenchanting voters, because they will see yet again that it doesn't matter who they elect in these elections if they were to be held. By definition, nothing significant will be able to change. The political balance won't change. Pendle Council will have no major decision-making powers. So, for me, Mr. Mayor, unfortunately, if we go beyond the facade of holding elections just for the sake of it, for a performative reason, If we go beyond that and we say, what is the point? There is no point. It is exactly the kind of action that turns voters off and estranges voters from a political system. And Mr. Mayor, I should declare I am up for re-election in May. And I'd be more than happy, as Councillor Iqbal said, we all are still accountable to voters and residents, and we will all continue to work hard whether we have elections or not. Mr. Mayor, I will be supporting the amendment.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to speak now on the whole thing just because it's a, either we have or we don't sort of debate at the moment. The welcome support from Councillor Sutcliffe and some of the supporters for Councillor Whip's motion to put the election to a head. On the subject of cost, I would like to remind this chamber of where a lot of that cost goes, because a lot of it is in the rent of community spaces, churches, village halls that host the polling stations. And all of that goes back into those community buildings and is a way that we as a council support them in their yearly running to ensure that they can continue as a community space. And to cancel the elections on what otherwise would be a guaranteed yearly income for these community spaces is, I think, a very short-sighted indeed way to look at the costs of elections, when actually a lot of that cost goes straight back into spending. It's spent locally, it's spent on what we think is important, and that is democracy and supporting our community spaces. Councillor Iqbal and the fear of losing seats. Councillor Iqbal, I think you have a lack of faith, and it's a bit displeasing, to be honest. I think we are in a very good position as a strong administration, joint administration, and we have a very good track record of delivering on our promises. And I think we're in a very strong running to maintain our seats in the upcoming election, which I think should go ahead. And to say that we can't hold them because we lose the seats, well, that's entirely beside the point. We should be winning because we should be showing people that we are taking the right steps and going in the right direction as council into LGR in the best way possible. And I believe we are doing that, and we should be able to tell people on the doorstep that that is indeed what we are doing. And then going to the polls in May is just a reaffirmation from the public that we are doing the right thing. And it may be that there's an overwhelming majority of the public who believe we're not. And I think that's just fair, that's democracy. Council Stone and performative elections, people voting and making a difference. Unfortunately, until the bourgeoisie is overthrown by the proletariat, I think that's just going to keep happening. And you're thinking too grand on the scale there, to be honest. I think, with the government we have in power, who are basically a conservative 2.0 with a Red Rose Act, the country isn't seeing change from the ballot box. And I think that is a real shame. And hopefully that changes in the near future. But that won't change if we just cancel the elections. So I think we should give people the vote. And I support this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Speaking to the amendment and Councillor Iqbal's comments around the movement of that amendment, I have some concerns about the justification. So reading the letter from the Secretary of State, or the Minister, it says here that the Secretary of State is only minded to make an order to postpone elections for 1 year for those councillors who raise capacity concerns. Now, the leader has already said that there are no capacity concerns within this council, and various things have happened over decades within this council where our capable officers have juggled various different things and always managed to run an election. So I think it's a difficult thing to justify based on the things that are set out within the letter here anyway. So it might be appealing to you, Councillor Iqbal, to cancel the elections, but the justification is not really met according to the rules set out.
Any more speakers? Councillor Iqbal, you want to say anything on the amendment? speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am genuinely disappointed in the independent group and the stance that they've taken this evening. I thought there was a common thread in the belief of democracy in this council chamber. I thought that people were prepared to stand up for what they believed in and put their names before voters in order to confirm or not that they had the confidence of the electorate, the residents of Pendle. And here I am in a council chamber where a considerable number of people do not believe that to be the case. Now, Councillor Stone, I think it was, said this isn't about democracy, it's about an election in May. Well, I'm afraid without elections, you do not have democracy. And without that legitimacy, we have no legitimacy. This council has no legitimacy. And the whole prospect of making decisions on behalf of residents is undermined and devalued. So I would appeal to all of us, particularly to those people who are up for re-election, is not to support the amendment which is in effect asking for elections to be cancelled. Please look into your hearts, be true to yourselves, and vote to keep people voting. Vote to keep that electorate, those voters, on side, because you are chipping away, if you don't, you are chipping away at the very foundations, the very basis of our society. And our politic, our community, our communities are already very much under threat from a sector of society that doesn't think that we are collectively, across all parties, being true to what people really want. And if we allow that cancer to grow and fester and become prevalent, we will not be living in a democracy. We will be living in dictatorships. We will be living in Trump's America, Trump's version of the way that society ought to operate. And we all know that the reason why the Labour government is doing this is because they don't want to lose seats to reform. Now, there aren't any Labour councillors in this council chamber. There are independent councillors, there are Liberal Democrat councillors, there are Conservative councillors. There would have been a Reform councillor here, but she's given her apologies, which is not surprising. I would appeal to you all. Be prepared to face the electorate. I think we can all, from each of our parties, hold our heads up and we can contest those elections. And I believe that not only is it worthwhile contesting those elections, but it's absolutely key and critical to the next 2 years of Pendle Council's existence. And if you do not agree to have the elections carrying on, we will all be punished at the subsequent elections because you will be giving succour and aid to the black prospect of the extreme right wing saying, look what they've done, they've cancelled the elections, it's a dictatorship. Mr Mayor, I call for a name vote on this amendment.
Do you have a seconder?
I'll take that. Mr. Mayor?
Council, I'll just restate what the amendment is, please.
The amendment is the council requests the government to postpone the election, local elections to take place on the 7th of May 2026.
So members, I'm going to call out name. If you can say either for the amendment, against the amendment, or abstain. Adnan Mohammed.
For.
Ahmad Faraz.
For.
Ahmed Nadeem.
For.
Ahmed Sajjad. For. Ali Zafar.
For.
Mohammed.
For.
Anwar Ruby.
For.
Ashraf Naeem. For. Aslam Mohammed.
For.
Bell Andy.
Against.
Church Chris.
Against.
Gallia David.
For.
Harith Mohammed. For. Hartley David.
Against.
Iqbal Mohammed.
For.
Iqbal Yasser.
For.
Kareem Mohammed.
For.
Land Susan.
Against.
Lord Dorothy. Lord Dorothy.
Against.
Mahmood Ashraf. Newman Ryan.
Against.
O'Connor Richard.
For.
Salter Kevin.
For.
Stone Martin.
For.
Sutcliffe Ash.
Against.
Tennant Yvonne.
Against.
Whip David.
Against.
Whip Law.
Against.
This is carried. So this is a substantive motion. We will vote again.
I would call for a recorded vote again.
Do you have a seconder?
Second.
So we're now voting on that amendment now being the substantive motion of the council. So if you are for the substantive motion, vote for. If you are against it, vote against. So the amendment is now the substantive motion. Adnan Mohammed.
For.
Ahmad Faraz.
For.
Ahmed Nadeem.
For.
Ahmed Sajjad. Or Ali Zafar.
For.
Ahmed Mohammed.
For.
Anwar Ruby.
For.
Ashraf Naeem.
For.
Aslam Mohammed.
For.
Bell Andy.
Against.
Church Chris.
Against.
Gallia David. Harith Mohammed. Hartley David.
Against.
Iqbal Mohammed.
For.
Iqbal Yasser.
For.
Khalid Mohammed.
For.
Land Susan.
Against.
Lord Dorothy.
I can't hear you.
Sorry, Lord Dorothy.
Against.
Mahmood Asjan O'Connor Richard.
For.
Salter Kevin.
Against.
Stone Martin.
For.
Sutcliffe Ash.
Against.
Tennant Yvonne.
Abstain.
Whip David.
Against.
Whip Law.
Against.
Newman Ryan.
Again. Is that democracy, sir?
That's carried. Good evening.
Ladies and gentlemen,
Please.